The Cincinnati Bengals might have the most explosive offensive core in the league, but it's starting to come at a cost. Because while Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Tee Higgins light up highlight reels, the rest of the roster, it's slowly falling apart. The Bengals are walking a tightrope, loaded with top-end stars but dangerously thin everywhere else. And now, as they head into the 2025 season, it's pretty fair to ask, are the Bengals overpaying their stars at the expense of a championship roster? Because if the cracks we saw in 2024 get any worse and the defensive drop-off continues, this era of Bengals football could go down as a massive what-if. So, let's break down how Cincinnati got here, what their offseason tells us, and whether their roster-building philosophy is actually hurting their Super Bowl window more than helping it. The 2024 season for the Bengals was one of disappointment, frustration, and a whole lot of injuries. It started with high hopes. Joe Burrow was healthy again. Jamar Chase was coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. The team had reloaded, and expectations were sky high. Fans believed that this was the year Cincinnati finally broke through. But instead, they barely made it out of the basement in the AFC North. Burrow missed more time, this time due to a lingering wrist issue that flared up mid-season, and even when he was on the field, the offense felt out of sync. The chemistry wasn't clicking, the offensive line struggled, again, and the run game lacked explosiveness. That elite passing game, it came in flashes, not full games. Jamar Chase still put up strong numbers, over 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, but it often felt like he was forcing production through sheer talent, not scheme. Tee Higgins had his moments, but he was banged up for most of the year, and while rookie Jermaine Burton gave them a spark down the stretch, it wasn't enough to salvage the offense. The O-line was a mess. Despite continued investment in the trenches, Burrow was pressured far too often, and when you're paying your quarterback $275 million, the last thing you want is him taking unnecessary hits every week. And that was only half the problem. On the other side of the ball, the Bengals' defense regressed, and it regressed hard. Lou Anarumo's defense, once one of the most creative and reliable in the league, suddenly looked completely lost. They finished bottom 5 in passing yards allowed and gave up more 20-plus yard plays than all but 2 teams in the NFL. Their safeties, a glaring weakness after letting both Von Bell and Jesse Bates walk in back-to-back off-seasons, were routinely picked on by opposing quarterbacks. The young core in the secondary just didn't hold up. Cam Taylor-Britt was solid in spurts, Dax Hill had a few highlight plays, but the unit as a whole lacked cohesion. Missed assignments, blown coverages, and poor tackling became weekly issues. The communication breakdowns were so bad at one point, Anarumo himself admitted that the defense had to go back to the basics in Week 13. The pass rush, it was Trey Hendrickson, and then a steep drop-off. The Bengals finished near the bottom of league in pressure rate when Hendrickson wasn't on the field. And without DJ Reader anchoring the middle, more on that later, the run defense couldn't stop anyone either. Teams figured it out pretty quickly. If you kept Hendrickson in check, the Bengals had no counter. By the end of the season, they were giving up over 24 points a game, the worst mark of the Burrow era, and one of the worst in the AFC. So, what's going wrong? How did this team go from a Super Bowl berth in 2021 to barely treading water in 2024? It all comes back to one thing: money. And more specifically, who's getting it? Joe Burrow's deal pays him $55 million per year. Jamar Chase is about to sign a deal that could exceed $30 million a year. Tee Higgins is playing on the franchise tag for $22 million guaranteed. That is $107 million tied up in just 3 players, all of which are on the offense. And that's not even accounting for deals to guys like Orlando Brown Jr. or the impending decisions on players like Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt once they're eligible. And yes, Burrow and Chase, they are worth it. Higgins is a top 20 receiver when healthy, but when you allocate that much of your cap to your stars, it leaves you with 2 choices. Draft exceptionally well every single year to keep the supporting cast cheap, or let solid veteran players walk and hope that the drop-off isn't too steep. The Bengals tried to do both, and now, they're feeling the consequences. Trey Hendrickson is the perfect example of that fallout. He's the team's best edge rusher, a Pro Bowler, and easily one of the top defensive ends in football over the past 3 years. And yet, this offseason, he requested a trade, reportedly due to frustration over the team's unwillingness to renegotiate or extend his deal. He eventually backed down, but the damage was done. The message to the locker room was clear: if you're not one of the big 3, don't expect loyalty. It's a very tricky balance. Teams that win Super Bowls find ways to reward key veterans while still planning ahead. And right now, the Bengals seem caught between win now and long-term flexibility, and players like Hendrickson are the ones caught in the middle. So, how did the Bengals respond this offseason? Well, they did make some moves. They signed safety Geno Stone, one of the top coverage safeties on the market after his breakout year in Baltimore. They brought in Sheldon Rankins to help on the interior, and they added depth at linebacker with Joe Bacci and re-signed some rotational guys. But none of those are franchise-changing signings. And that brings us to the draft. With the 18th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Bengals took edge rusher Shamar Stewart out of Miami. On paper, it made sense. Big, athletic, 6'5", 270 pounds. The physical tools are all elite. But the production, not so much. He never had more than 4 sacks in a season. He struggled with consistency and was often criticized for his effort. The Bengals bet on upside, hoping Anarumo and the coaching staff could unlock all the raw potential. But 2 months later, he still hasn't signed his rookie deal. That is extremely rare for a first-rounder. Reports suggest that his camp is pushing for more guaranteed money than the Bengals are offering, and after already dealing with contract drama around Higgins and Hendrickson, it's yet another headache for the front office to deal with. If Stewart becomes a hit, it's a great swing. But if he struggles or holds out into camp, well, that's a huge miss at a position of dire need. Let's not sugarcoat it. This defense still has major holes. There's no clear pass rush threat opposite of Hendrickson. The defensive tackle rotation without DJ Reader is average at best. The secondary is young, unproven, and likely to struggle again early in the year. And the linebacker core is solid, but unspectacular. In a division with Lamar Jackson, the newly signed Aaron Rodgers, and a rising quarterback in Cleveland, that's simply not going to cut it. Cincinnati is essentially gambling that their stars will carry them, that Burrow will be elite, that Chase will be dominant, that Higgins will stay healthy, and that this patchwork defense will be just good enough to hang on. But that is a lot of ifs for a team trying to contend in the most loaded conference in football. The Bengals have the most important piece locked up, the quarterback. Joe Burrow, when healthy, is elite, but even elite quarterbacks need some help. Cincinnati is walking a razor-thin line between contending and collapsing. They have the stars, they have the name recognition, but the depth, the balance, the flexibility, it's fading fast. If everything clicks, if Stewart emerges, if the defense gels and the O-line protects Burrow, this team can still win 11 or 12 games and make a playoff run. But if the cracks grow, if the defense stays bottom tier, if Higgins walks, and if contract drama continues, then we could be talking about a Bengals team that peaked in 2021 and never found its way back. The window is open, but it's getting tighter, and the front office has to ask itself, is star power worth it if you don't have the foundation to support it? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more weekly NFL content. Got thoughts on the Bengals offseason or their spending strategy? Drop a comment down below. And are they building this team the right way, or is the clock ticking on their championship window? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.